Let's go ahead and bring him in on tonight's edition of the Off the Bench Spotlight Series. We're joined in studio by former Marion County University of Tennessee standout and Greater Chattanooga Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Eric Westmoreland. And Eric, how we doing tonight? Thanks for coming down here and talking with us. How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. Thank y'all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Yep. So like Joe mentioned, I'm sure he talked about you quite a bit during your Marion County career.
Yep.
So, you played at Marion County, won state championships there, and, throughout your college career and after, your playing career was done, made your way back to Chattanooga, and now you're on the coaching side at Baylor. I think you said you're going into year number 20 there at Baylor. So kind of talk about that transition and kind of what's been the biggest change from, your playing days for the Warriors to now? Because, you've seen, like I said, you've seen both sides of it now for sure, playing and coaching.
Yeah, it's really been just growth. From being a high school athlete here in the Chattanooga area, growing up in Jasper, Tennessee, to going to the University of Tennessee and playing for a national championship and winning two SEC titles, and then being a third-round draft pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the sports world and particularly football has done a lot for me, throughout my life, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So being at Baylor, for the past 19, going on 20 years, it's been a long time. I'm just grateful to be a part of a great organization and school that allows me to give back to the youth.
Yeah, for sure. So, we were talking about last week during, when we had the coaches from Tyner in here. That was during the dead period. The dead period's over, so kind of you got the batteries a little bit recharged, and I guess knowing that the home stretch is coming up. So, what's the mood been like on campus with those guys coming in there and kind of just getting refocused for getting ready for the start of the football season?
We just been working. Just been 10 toes down and. All the guys have been excited to get back together and get ready to work. So we're anxious for the season to come up and we're ready to get things started.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So, Coach Eric Kimry, University of South Carolina grad. So, any smack talk? I'm sure there's got to be between you and him whenever the Volunteers and the Gamecocks meet up.
Oh, all the time. But we talk all the time about. South Carolina and Tennessee, and he was actually, the quarterback behind when we played in '98. He was actually the backup. So, we have fun jabbing at each other from time to time.
Yeah, that makes it fun for sure. So, we'll dive into your Marion County career, but this just hit me. We're talking about you and Coach Kimry. So, what was the recruiting process back when you were, trying to figure out where you were going to go to school, ultimately winding up in Knoxville? So nowadays you got Huddle, you have social media, and obviously, old school game tape. But what was the recruiting process like back in the mid '90s when you were trying to decide where you were going to spend your 4 years in college?
I tell kids all the time that I went to one camp in high school. I went to a junior day at the University of Tennessee. My junior year. That's the only camp I had ever been to. So it was, kind of surreal just to be recruited by the likes of Tennessee, Alabama. And I can also remember getting a call from Charlie Strong, who was at Notre Dame at the time. I had always watched Notre Dame on TV, Rocket Ismail, Tony Rice, and all those guys. So growing up and, seeing them playing on Saturdays, so that was kind of, surreal too.
Yeah, that was a big recruiting tool for Notre Dame back in the day because they were
always on TV.
They were the only school with a consistent, national television presence. And so now that's one thing I'm sure that's changed as well. And you can definitely tell how many networks across, whether it's the ESPNs, CBSs, or whatever, your team is wherever you go to school now. You're getting at least a chance to play on some kind of television coverage every week. So I'm sure that's a big one for sure too.
Yeah, and it's big because now, your parents can always see you play.
Sure.
If they're not there in person. All these teams are on TV, every weekend.
So, I guess we'll start with, your time playing for Marion County. You mentioned before we got started here, I didn't realize this until, doing research for the show. You were a multi-sport athlete for Marion County. You played football, obviously what you're known for, and baseball. So kind of talk about, I guess, what was it like being a multi-sport athlete back then? Because, like we said, throughout this Spotlight series, you see in these, doesn't matter what sport it is, they're constantly being involved with travel sports, traveling the country, and just, it's like a full-time job now, versus back what it was back in the 90s, I'm sure.
Yeah, so for me, coming from a small community, a lot of my friends, we all played 3 sports. Played football, basketball, and baseball, but really football and baseball were my main 2. So we didn't do a lot of traveling in the summer for baseball. I played for, the Chattanooga Cyclones, and then I picked up a couple of games with the Chickamauga Bandits. So that was kind of...
That was the extent of the travel ball back then,
that was
for
the
sure.
extent of it.
Yeah. So what was your favorite sport growing up? Was it football or was it baseball?
Anything that I was playing at the time.
Okay, all right.
I just enjoyed competing.
There you go.
So whatever I was playing at the time, I just wanted to give my all in doing that.
Who's your favorite team growing up? It doesn't have to be football. It can be any sport.
Oh, any sport. I always liked the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
So that kind of hurt my heart. They'd always lose.
You don't hear that very often.
In the Super Bowl. Of course, the Atlanta Falcons, Dallas Cowboys, teams like that.
Now, and obviously we were talking about the Last Dance being here. You were a Jordan guy, I'm assuming, too?
Definitely a Jordan guy.
LeBron not in the discussion of the greatest of all time there?
Can't get with Jordan.
I agree with that.
You do. And that's
definitely agree with that.
That's coming from a Kobe guy over there, too, by the way, Eric.
Now, I like Kobe, too. Now, I put Kobe in there.
Absolutely underrated.
So
most definitely.
So who's on the Rushmore of greatest NBA players? Then, according to you, you got 4. Obviously, Jordan and Kobe.
Oh, you gonna ask me that?
Yeah.
Off the cuff. Here we go.
Yeah.
Off the bench here, man. Come on.
I'm going Jordan.
It's tough.
It is tough. It's really tough.
Might have to throw LeBron in there, I guess, to fill it out. How about you, Joe?
Man.
Oh, Jordan, Kobe, Shaq.
Another Laker to fill it out, I'm sure.
Well, he changed the game. He literally changed the game. So
He did. That's true.
You got to put him in there.
I agree.
And for the last one, I don't know. That could go. That could go a number of ways. That would be the tough one for me. That last one.
Yeah.
Because you got some big men that deserve other than Shaq, that deserve to be in there. But there's just so many guards, and maybe it's Tim Duncan. The big fundamental.
Man.
Maybe it's him you put in there.
Okay.
Tim. Okay.
I like it. You don't hear that very often, for sure. So
And I hated him when he was in his prime, because he was a little thorn in the Lakers' side there for a minute. But you got to give him his due.
yeah, for sure. So before we dive back, our guest here, Joe, I got to ask you, who was the biggest rival for you back for the Lakers? Was it the Kings, because they had some pretty good series back in the early 2000s, or was it the Spurs, or was it the Celtics? Because the Celtics have more championships still.
We're not. I don't even know. I didn't even hear what you just said.
Exactly.
Spurs, maybe, and I wouldn't put the Kings there.
Yeah.
And that was cyclical too. I mean, you had some teams to pop up that got really good.
Yeah.
The Pistons, obviously, back in the day. So that's more cyclical than anything. I can't really look at one team and say, yeah, that's the one that caused my Lakers teams to really falter, I guess.
Well, clear. I guess while we're on rivals, let me just ask you. Obviously, when you're at Marion County, Eric, it had to be South Pittsburgh, the rival. Was there a close second?
No close second. No close second at all.
So this past year, obviously, your alma mater won another state championship, first time in a long time. I know it didn't go your guys' way when you played for a state championship, but how'd that make you feel as a former alum, just seeing them, Coach Starkey and those guys getting it done and raising that gold ball at Finley Stadium?
Man, it was awesome because, Coach Starkey is my cousin. So
okay, did not know that.
That's family. And,
nice.
To see him as a head coach, win a state championship and win the first state championship, since I won one in 95, I was ecstatic with, for the whole community, a lot of the players on the team, so I was just so proud of that whole town and that team and Coach Starkey.
We kind of left off, we kind of mentioned the first segment there. You went to only one camp. Mm-hmm. It was at Tennessee. So I guess what was the biggest draw that drew you to the University of Tennessee?
just being close to home. It came down to Tennessee and Alabama were my final two schools.
Yeah.
I was also, my first offer was actually Memphis in football and baseball. That was also my first recruiting trip, my first plane ride. So, there in a sense that I had a school that was showing me a lot of love.
Sure.
And then Tennessee and Alabama came into the picture. So it was, kind of surreal being from Jasper, Tennessee, and right on the state line that, Tennessee and Alabama are both recruiting you and offering you a scholarship. And, because everybody in my hometown are Tennessee and Alabama fans.
That's true. I mean, that's the good thing about kind of that Marion County, Jasper, South Pittsburgh area. It's like right there on both state lines. So there's definitely a lot of split allegiances there for sure. So, you get to Knoxville, obviously.
Let me ask this real quick, Jeff. Was baseball in the mix with Tennessee or Alabama, or was Memphis the only one to kind of give you that option, or you could possibly play both sports?
It was at Tennessee, but Coach Formal's rule was we had to go through one full spring practice before I joined the baseball team.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I ended up hurting my knee against UCLA and had surgery, so missed out on that. And I was a catcher, and wasn't really good for me to be a catcher anymore.
Use those knees.
So there went that.
So that's a good question right there. That would have been a good opportunity. I think Coach Rod Delmonico was the coach at the university.
Was the coach.
So yeah. For sure. So you get there, obviously, I think, was it 96 you said was your first season?
Year, yes.
So I guess kind of talk about overcoming that adversity, because like you just said, you got injured early on there, and as a young man, I'm sure your mind's running a 1,000 different places, whether you're going to recover fully, but obviously you did, and proved out to be a big contributor for the team in your last 3 years, for sure.
Yeah, I went in as a safety. I was about 205 pounds.
Oh wow!
As a freshman, and I can just remember all the older guys would always ask me how much I weighed. I'm like I'm 205, and they just start laughing, and I'd always say like what? They'd be like, oh, they're gonna move you to linebacker here pretty soon. I think that next couple of days I was in the dining hall eating lettuce, trying not to gain weight. But, unfortunately it happened. I put on about 20, 25 pounds. So halfway, second, third game of the year, they moved me to linebacker, and that was that.
It worked out well for him.
It did.
I will say that for sure.
Yeah.
Did you have did you play linebacker at Marion County, or was it safety and running back?
Safety and running back.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So talk about the adjustment there, because obviously it's a position you never played.
Yeah.
So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, I had a lot of older guys at Tennessee. One was Tyrone Hines, big brother, from Brownsville, Tennessee. Of course, Al Wilson, Nick Jester. Those guys kind of helped me out and taught me how to play the linebacker position. It was tough. 2-a-days was tough. Learning how to read and do all those things, it was very tough. But I was fortunate enough to have some really good upperclassmen who took me under their wing and taught me how to play that position. So,
going, obviously, like you said, part of two SEC championship teams, 97 and 98. So kind of talk about, I guess, that process in that year, because, as like you said, as a local guy playing in Jasper, your state team, obviously, for sure. So, and it did something that had not been done in a long time, and ultimately getting to the Fiesta Bowl and beating Cowboy Joe's Florida State Seminoles there.
So that's your team?
That's my team.
My bad. I'm sorry.
He's not, though. I mean, I guess as a former player, I mean, obviously, we've seen the documentaries, we've seen the specials about that team, but I guess as a local kid playing for the state school, how'd that feel for you?
It was special. That team was special. We had a lot of guys who just wanted to win. We didn't care who got the credit. We just wanted to win. It was kind of funny because we had just lost Peyton Manning. We just lost Marcus Nash. We had just lost a lot of key guys from that 97 team, Leonard Little. And a lot of people doubted us and didn't think we could get the job done. But we knew, what kind of firepower that we had coming back. T was a up and coming quarterback and was a different style quarterback than Peyton was. So we knew that would also give a lot of defensive problems with how he was able to run the ball.
Yeah, for sure. So looking at some of those stats, I think you finished second on the team in total tackles. I think 79 total tackles, so definitely a big contributor there. So obviously national championship is probably the biggest – your favorite moment of your playing career in Knoxville. What was another one that stuck out to you? Because you had I think a fumble return against Wyoming in the very first game of the '99 season. Or obviously the hit at Vanderbilt is probably brought up to you at least once every month or so.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody talks about the hit at Vanderbilt, and and the reason that hit at Vanderbilt was so special because we went into that game without my two counterparts, Al Wilson and Raynoch Thompson. So the focus was solely on me and, the blocking schemes that Vanderbilt had and things like that. So, that's special to me because I was able to, make a lot of plays, that day and also keep everybody in tune with what we were doing on the defensive side.
Absolutely. So toughest environment you played in?
Oh, there's a couple. Of course, Florida. But I'll tell you the craziest is probably LSU at night. Yeah, we played down there my senior year, and we got down 24-0 like that. Ended up coming back and taking LSU into overtime, but still ended up losing. But that's probably it's a crazy place to play at night.
Where's it rank with like South Pittsburgh? Because it kind of reminds me of a little bit of South Pittsburgh too, just based on the rowdiness and everybody kind of being on top of you.
When the lights come on, everything goes, man.
I would guess the only difference is, at South Pittsburgh, they ain't throwing things at you. At LSU, they're throwing anything they can at you when you come out of that tunnel.
I've heard that from so many former players. That's always one or two on their list. LSU at night, or just LSU in general, because those cages, man, they get a little crazy down there.
A little tuned up, for sure.
Absolutely.
A lot tuned up.
So I guess as far as communication goes, I mean, obviously, now it's changing the communication systems at every level of football, it seems like now. What was the process like kind of coming up with that? Because obviously when you play in environments like, Gainesville and Baton Rouge, but also some of those, louder games at Neyland Stadium, the crowd can kind of make it difficult to communicate. So how did you guys handle that?
Well, at home, we used a lot of hand signals. And a lot of that also depends on, who you're playing with, how well do you know each other?
Okay.
How well are y'all gelled as a defense? So those are play big parts in that. I was always comfortable with me, Al, and Ray. We knew what each other was doing. So a lot of hand signals and things like that.
So I guess you being a linebacker, what would you rather have? Would you rather stop the gap or get in the backfield for like a couple yards loss on the running back or a quarterback sack? Because you had 3 against Kentucky in a game I saw.
Yeah, I had to call my own blitzes then.
Did you really?
Yeah, I changed the play.
I'm sure, Coach.
It's me, Coach.
So we would get certain formations.
Okay.
So I was allowed to change the blitz call depending on what formations we got. So a couple of the formations that they came out in, and then they would motion. So once they motioned, then I could change the formation, and I would blitz instead of somebody else. Was
that an upperclassman perk?
It was a perk of being there for a long time, and the coaches trusted me.
I was going to say, I'm sure Coach Chavis, if you were a freshman, probably would not have liked that. You might not have liked practice the very next week if you had changed it, unless it worked in your favor, though.
No, not at all. Even if it did work in your favor, you still wouldn't like it.
We were talking just a little bit ago about, I guess, the differences between when you played at Marion County to your, to now when you're coaching at Baylor. The trading tape thing, we talked about this, with our guests before, back on, let's just say it's on a Friday night, you're coaching a team or whatever, Saturday mornings, it was two assistants from the teams meeting halfway at the Waffle House parking lot, and now, like we were talking about before, you can just pull it up on Huddle and send notes and that sort of thing too. So, kind of talk about that from your perspective, because like you said, a lot has changed in that regard. But kind of talk about the differences there, because you had some pretty good insight in your time at Tennessee as well, getting tape and watching film.
Yeah, we've came a long way since VHS.
VHS, baby.
I remember watching, game film on VHS in high school. So, and then going to college, of course, it was upgraded. They had a computer system, and we had a guy, Joe Harrington, who would make us DVDs of what plays and things that we needed to watch and things like that. So, and now that you have Huddle, you can do anything on Huddle.
Yeah.
I can send my kids that I coach what plays I want them to watch. I can edit it. I can see how long they've watched it. You can see all those things on Huddle. So it's always a good tool. It's a great tool. I wish I would have invented it, though.
No doubt. Absolutely. So
yeah.
You might not be right here.
I might not.
We're thankful for that tonight for sure.
Yeah.
So any awkward discussions with any of your players about the amount of time they've watched film? Because like you said, you can track that stuff. Like, did you watch that? I don't think you did.
Yeah, you can put little notes in there and see if they've watched it. Yeah, I've had many discussions over the years of, how much time they've spent on Huddle and what actually plays they've actually watched. So,
I mean, it definitely show up on the field, how much they watched, how much they prepared. But now with that tool in your tool belt, you can see exactly how much time they've seen. It's a pretty cool little trick right there for sure.
Yeah, it's great. And I have kids that, now they're film junkies. And they want to watch film with me, and they want me to send them stuff. So I think it's a great tool to use. I use it I coach girls basketball too, so I use it, with them for that. A lot of times they'll tell me, I didn't travel, I didn't do this, or I can show you on film. So I just send it to them.
How much film did you watch back in the day as a high schooler? Because I remember, of course, I was a lineman, but even back then in the early 90s, we wasn't watching. There was film out there, of course, but there wasn't like a dedicated film time, or we just catch some here and there. Were you, at that point, you were a little bit past me, so did you guys have that dedicated film time, and it became a bigger part of, game prep?
Well, we watch film on Sunday. As a team, we had, like I said, had the VHS tape, so we would watch it as a team. I remember my senior year, we're getting ready to play in the state championship against Humboldt, so we go in and we're watching the Humboldt film. My coach, Ken Cockwood, he was like, they got this guy that, he's being recruited everywhere also. His name was Toby, good friend of mine, Toby Champion, played at Humboldt High School, and he was number 55, played defensive tackle. But on offense, he had a Velcro number 45. But we all thought it was two different guys. And I remember looking at my coach, I said, Coach, you see that big guy they got at fullback? And we didn't know till we got there that it was the same person.
That's great.
So me and Toby, we kid about that all the time, about him having the Velcro jersey with a number on it.
I kind of want to see that tape now to kind of see how well that Velcro holds up. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, you mentioned Toby, man. You obviously during that time with Marion County, you played against some amazing individuals. Mm-hmm. Is there one guy that kind of stands out that either, not that you had issues with him or the team, but that just you could recognize that this guy was going to be the real deal? Maybe it's another guy on Marion County.
We had a lot of good players. I mean, one of the best, couple of the best teammates I've had, one of my running back mates was another one of my cousins, Anthony Martin, who passed away some years ago. Rayburn Prince, probably one of the best teammates I've ever had. But playing against some guys, man, Jarvis Smith over at Saudi was something. And, we played them my senior year, probably in front of 10, 11, 12,000 people up at Saudi. And, that was that was a heck of a game.
Now, this guy played at Ray County, so, I mean, you had a 56-1 overall record when you were playing at Marion County. What would have happened if they would have played the Ray County Golden Eagles? Would it have been?
We played Ray County.
Okay, well, never mind then. I was going to say it would have been 55-2 if you had been involved in it.
Yeah, nah, I wouldn't have made a difference. Marion County had it rolling back then, man. It was dumb how good you guys were, and it's funny you bring that up too, because when you look at the expectations the players had at Marion County, then you go from Marion County to Tennesse, where the expectations are just as high, and then when you get to the league, the expectations are high there. You can say, well, one team's not that great or whatever, but expectations are high across the board.
It's high-level football.
Yeah. So when you have been immersed in high expectation football your entire career, how are you bringing that to or how do you package that up and try to teach your guys that same thing? Because now that you're coaching at Baylor, again, high expectations. And how do players handle that? And when you have a player or two that might have some trouble with that, is that just a culture thing, or how do you address that?
I was very fortunate to have some coaches who held me accountable. Coach Ken Colquitt, at Marion County, even my baseball coach, Coach Al Raffo, you didn't want to play around him. And so I was fortunate enough to have some coaches who held me accountable, even my parents, holding me accountable to their standard. So going to college, I would always tell some of my teammates, I'm used to getting yelled at.
Yeah.
I'm used to getting things said to me, and it not hurting my feelings and things like that. So, when I went to college, I didn't have a problem with being coached hard.
Yeah.
I had already had a foundation, and a standard that was given to me from a lot of coaches and my parents, growing up in Jasper, Tennesse.
And you were a Mr. Football winner, and you had 85 touchdowns, and yet Coach Colquitt was not afraid to yell at you, like you said. So that goes to show kind of the environment in the program that he led to.
Yeah, there was one time, my senior year, I thought I was going to be cute, and I scored, and I did this before I scored, I did this high step from the 10-yard line in.
Your boy Dion, Joe.
And I turned, and when I was running to the sideline, I could just see him pointing at me. So
Yikes.
I can't say what he said, but
you knew what was coming.
I knew it was coming. So, but that was the last time I done that.
And not only that, you had guys like Al Wilson and the teammates at Tennesse that were known to be kind of hard nosed, and they wasn't going to take any lollygagging or anything like that. You were expected to come in and work and be a professional.
Yeah, and and I saw that early on when I got to Tennesse. I can remember we played in Memphis, and I was Al's backup, and Al had got hurt. So I come in the game as a freshman, and I can remember I'm excited. It's on TV. Everybody is going to get to see me play from my hometown. And all I can remember is Tyrone Hines saying, "You better not mess up." But he used some other words.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so, the standard was set, and it trickled down to every freshman class that came in, what the Tennesse standard was.
How often do you keep up with your teammates? Because I think you said before you trying to hit most home games in Knoxville every year.
Oh, I keep up with everybody. A lot of guys. We do a lot of good things in the community. We have a thing that's called the Legends of Tennesse. So we go all over the state of Tennesse and put on football camps.
Jabari Davis over there?
Jabari Davis,
okay.
Chris Treese. So we have a lot of the guys that are part of that. I think we done 10 or 11 camps this past year, and then we end with a 3-day camp up in Gatlinburg. So we have about 110 to 150 kids at each camp. So those are kind of some of the things that brings all of us back together to see each other also.
Eric, we can't thank you again for coming down here, man. Give us a little bit of your time because, right out of the dead period like we mentioned before, and I know things are crazy for you and Coach Kimmery and everybody over there at Baylor, but we definitely appreciate you coming down here and giving us a little bit of your time. It's been fun.
No, I appreciate y'all having me, man. Y'all do a great job, and, thank y'all for supporting, all the teams, and we look forward to having a great season this year.
Yeah, it definitely I think definitely one of the better stories in our area will be coming from right across the pond over here from us at Baylor for sure. So, you go through Marion County, you go through Tennessee. Tell me the emotions of getting that call day one of the NFL draft and saying, hey, we want you to come play for us in Jacksonville. What was that like for you? Because day one is only the first round now, but back then,
it was the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, so that was a cool thing. I'm sure for you to get a call on day one saying that you were going to be selected to play in the NFL.
It was hectic. Just having all my family and friends and things stopping by the house.
Could you hear over the screaming once they found out you were going to go play for the Jags?
Yeah, it actually started a little early because I actually got a call by Carolina in the second round.
Okay.
So in the second round, Carolina called me, and they had me and another guy, Chris Jenkins, who played defensive tackle. They had both of us on the line, so they came back and they was like, they haven't decided which one they want to take yet. So hold on. And you can see it on the ticker. So they came back and said, they're going to take Chris Jenkins with this pick. If you're around in the third round, we're going to take you with our third round pick. Well, Jacksonville had the pick right before them in the third round. So when the phone rang, I'm looking at it, and it was a 904 area code, and I'm kind of
good sign.
So I'm on the phone, and I'm like, yes. Oh, I can't wait to be there. And, as soon as I was like, I can't wait to be there,
you can't hear
my cousins is acting up in the background, jumping around, and it was great though.
That's awesome.
Did you memorize all the area codes before the draft just so you knew?
Well, I kind of knew which 3 or 4 teams. My agent had already prepped me on which 3 or 4 teams that it could possibly be. So I was already constantly in contact with my agent about, who he had talked to and things like that. So I kind of knew, which teams that I'd be going to.
Favorite environment you played in the NFL?
Oh, there's a lot. Pittsburgh. Kansas City is wild.
Okay.
The Chiefs. And
clearly Oakland didn't make a stand out on you.
No, because they were kind of down then. But Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I was a part of Bottlegate.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
I was a part of Browns. Well, this was when I was in Jacksonville though, when we played the Browns.
Okay, that makes
so I was
sense,
I was a part of Bottlegate.
You kept your helmet on, I'm sure, the whole time.
I did. I kept my helmet on. I ran to the 50-yard line. You could see when they started throwing the bottles, we didn't know what was happening. And, so they suspended the game.
Yeah.
And you could see they were even throwing them at the Browns players. So you could see the Browns player running over on our sideline, talking about, hey, man, we just go out here on the 50-yard line and hang out. But when those referees were trying to go through the tunnel, it was like fans were waiting on them. I mean, like I tell people all the time, y'all need to go and watch that video of Bottlegate with the Jaguars and the Browns.
It's definitely been on my YouTube search history before, so I definitely got to do that again for sure, man. No doubt about that. Well, man, we got about a minute left. Again, thank you so much for coming down here. Good luck to you and the Red Raiders this football season, and when girls basketball season rolls around. Looking forward to seeing how those teams fare out for this season.
All right, I appreciate y'all and thank y'all for everything y'all do.